Tennessee beats Bowling Green by a score of 38-6. Little mini podcast with Eric Kane, Ben McKee, Austin Price, and Brent Hubbs. As the Volunteers rack up 326 yards on the ground, 471 yards of offense on 88 snaps, a tale of two quarters in the first half, and then a dominant run game in the second half. What's aside from the quarterback, we'll get to that, but what's your biggest takeaway from Tennessee's win?
That they got a lot of improvement to do. I mean, defense I thought really kind of was, to me, the best part of the night. And going to halftime, I don't think anybody was willing to say that, because, I mean, they just gave up just some chunk plays here and there to allow them to get a couple of field goals. But on the whole, I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown. They did what they were supposed to do against an inferior Bowling Green team. Defensive line was, I thought, very disruptive. Offensively, flashes. Run game was consistent, I thought, pretty much all night. But going to have to be better. And, I mean, look, everybody's going to sit there and pick apart Joe Milton's performance. And, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I'd say it is the run game. There were some things all across the board that you like tonight, but the run game, you had two guys that finished it with over 100 yards, and Jabari Small and Tyon Evans. I thought Tyon Evans there in the third quarter just took over the game. I mean, simply put, he was getting chunk plays, 17 yards, 11 yards, and he and Joe Milton were really working well together in the backfield. I thought the offensive line, of course, blocked well in that regard, and really well overnight, especially with the injury to Cooper Mason. How you had to shuffle the deck a little bit with Ollie Lane coming in and Jerome Carvin playing center, which again I think was a surprise. But I'll go with the run game. I mean, quarterback play, as Josh Heupel put it after the game, it's got to get a whole lot better, but it helps a lot, and especially in an inferior opponent tonight. But it helps a lot when you have two guys that are running the ball the way they are.
Yeah, how can you not look at the running game? I mean, your two backs, 1A, 1B, however you want to look at them, both rush for 116 yards apiece and have a touchdown. And I kind of sat there and wondered, where would Tyon Evans be in the rotation had he not really been banged up in spring due to injury? And there at the beginning of fall camp makes me kind of wonder if Tyon Evans would be the guy, and then Jabari Small would feed off of him. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out the rest of the season. But just to be a little bit different than Kaner, Theo Jackson. I've never been overly impressed with Theo Jackson, quite frankly, and I was overly impressed with Theo Jackson tonight. Team high, 11 tackles, 2.5 tackles for a loss. I think he had a pass breakup as well. He was all over the field and had some good angles on guys and some really nice tackles. So I thought Theo Jackson played really well. Secondary played well, and they should against this Bowling Green team. But they looked really well, and I'll give Ollie Lane props. I was kind of scratching my head when he went into the game, and I'd love to look back at the tape before I make some declaration, but they did better with Ollie Lane than quite frankly, I thought that they would. So I was surprised to see Ollie Lane go in, but they were still able to run the football with him in the game, so that was surprising to me, and I thought a positive takeaway.
I had another one, Caleb Tremblay. I thought he really impressed me up front on the defensive line. A couple of times he got in the backfield and was disruptive, made some plays. You're sitting there doing the broadcast. When they kept going, I mean, I get changing out a linebacker, but every third series they go to this Aaron Beasley's Solon Page package. It just seemed odd. Did it not to you? Did they do the whole set? Because it wasn't like that the defense was out there all night and these guys needed a break. I don't know.
They would keep the D line and the secondary in at times with the starters, and then put in those two.
It just seemed odd that the linebacker. Maybe they were just trying to get them reps, and they knew they weren't going to really have this game in jeopardy. But what'd you think?
Well, I mean, I thought there was a stretch where Alontae Taylor he missed a couple of series in the first half, and it was kind of like, what? I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. What was that about? I mean, I think they did go into the game with an idea of getting some guys some series and some reps, and maybe messing with the combinations a little bit, looking at different combinations. That's not to say they didn't take Bowling Green serious, but it felt like defensively, I don't want to say experimenting, but they were kind of getting a feel for some guys a little bit more than I thought that they would. Here's the hard part about this thing, and everybody's going to do this. Everybody does this week one. It's typical. How much of it is well, it's week one. They got a lot to go. Everything's and then versus well, they're just not any good. You know what I mean? I thought they would score more points. Okay, I mean, if you had told me that Joe Milton was going to overthrow two guys on wide open deep balls, I would have said, nah, he's going to hit at least one of those. The first one I get, maybe you're a little geeked up. The second one, he didn't give him a chance, on that one. Just ball was thrown on a rope and without any kind of, air under it, giving the guy a chance to make a play there. So I struggle a little bit with, what still kind of what are they? You can pick out some individuals that you like, but exactly what they are, who they are, still remains a bit of a mystery to me.
I think we learned that they're a running team. I know it's only one game, but I think that's the one area you can't critique Joe Milton is him running around with the rock in his hands. And talked about the running backs. Is this team a running team? We thought we were going to see Joe Milton's arm all night long, but they ran the ball efficiently. I'll be curious to see what they look like against a well-coached Pat Narduzzi team next week, but it may be a run-first team.
Is Joe Milton going to run the football that much every game? That's something I was surprised about. I thought there'd be some quarterback draws in there, and I thought there would be some option tags on there, and there really wasn't. Whereas if Hendon Hooker was in the ballgame, I think we would have seen that a little bit. But there was a ton of draw plays, and maybe that's something they saw in film looking at Bowling Green. Obviously, he's a big guy, but I'll have to check the stat sheet. He ran well tonight, but I got to think that you can't run him that much, especially in 2 weeks when you're playing, the likes of, Florida and SEC play and stuff like that. So that's something that I took away as well. He wasn't great throwing the football after the first quarter, but he ran well. A couple of times he left some yards out there, though, still.
Yeah, I know. 14 carries, how many of those were called? How many of those were option reads by him? The second touchdown he could have certainly very easily handed that ball off for a touchdown, and he kept it for to go outside, which he used a nice stiff arm to get there, but they could have scored either way there. I don't know what that is. The other thing we were talking about, Ben and I were, I don't know what all they're asking him to do from a progression standpoint in terms of seeing the field, because when he watches it on tape, and Josh Heupel acknowledges he missed some open guys. Is that because he locked in on somebody? Is that did they take one side of the field away from him at times?
That was my takeaway at times.
I'm not sure.
Because I would sit there and I'd watch his head, and it wouldn't move. He would be scanning the left side of the field, and there'd be a guy streaking across the middle or a back in the flat climbing. That Cedric Tillman touchdown, Ben, you told me, I didn't see this, but Ben, you told me that Hyatt was wide open, but Evans was in the flat climb. He could have walked it in the end zone, so it didn't even see it. Now it worked out. But maybe, I'll have to go back and watch the film as well to see how much he did that. But I noticed that on a few plays.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And again, part of this is not sure exactly what all he's asked to do and how this, because we keep hearing from Alex Golish and we keep hearing from Joey Hosley. We coach quarterbacks different. I don't know what that means, coaching quarterbacks different. It's clear this, though. Joe Milton's the quarterback. There was no reason to change quarterbacks in this game. Try to get him, he needs as much tread on the tires as he can get to try to work through some things. And then the answer to the question, it feels like Hendon Hooker was the backup quarterback because he was the first one off the bench. I know it was mop-up duty, but that's certainly the vibe that you take away from,
it is
from this game.
Maybe not in 6 years ago, but now when you can play 4 games and still redshirt, absolutely. That's the way I definitely felt. Again, maybe in years past you couldn't really get a tell because maybe they put somebody else in, but now that you can play without redshirting, to me the number 2 quarterback coming in is your number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, and I'll say this. When you look at Joe Milton, there's some physical things that he missed. There's some things he missed once the ball was snapped. But in terms of operation stuff, they didn't have false starts. They didn't have delay game penalties.
Didn't turn the football over.
Other than the one, you get the fumble knocked away from him late. But, the operation part of it was good. Execution, not so much. But the operation part of it, snap to snap, particularly in that first quarter, those first 2 drives, I'm saying they're going to score 65 points, and this thing's it's over.
Back in spring, that's the first thing Joey Halsey said. He said the number one thing we're looking for in a quarterback is can you operate within our system and run it. And you're right. I mean, from an execution standpoint, you can always get better from that standpoint, but just running the offense at the tempo, you no pre-snap penalties. That was an issue in scrimmage number 1. Didn't see a whole lot of that tonight. Yeah, I would agree with that.
It feels like to me, and as we get ready to wrap it up here, they're pretty basic on offense. Now, I know that they don't have this. I mean, they don't have a playbook that's got 700 plays in it. It's not the thickest notebook playbook.
It's not Jim Chaney.
But did you feel like they were pretty vanilla, pretty simplistic, Ben?
I did, and Kane and I talked about that on our Game Quest podcast that we did this morning, that you don't have to be super elaborate to beat this Bowling Green team. And I think that's why tonight feels so underwhelming, is because Bowling Green is so bad. Now, I thought Bowling Green played better than I expected.
It was better than 2020 Bowling Green.
Yes, it was much better. So I'll be curious to look back in a month or two and see kind of where Bowling Green is. Is this a better Bowling Green team than maybe we thought that they would be? Not saying that they're going to go on to win the MAC or anything, but I don't think they're an 0-5 football team like they were last year, losing every game by 25 points or more. But it feels underwhelming because you see those statistics. You hear about a true freshman walk-on starting at center, a right tackle starting for the first time after playing defensive line going into fall camp, and you think Tennessee should dominate on every single play at every level with each unit, and they come out here and they don't do that. So I do wonder how much of that is just being simply vanilla, because you don't have to run super diverse blitzes or coverages, or on offense run gadget plays or gimmick plays or whatever you want to call them. You don't have to do that against a team like Bowling Green.
My last thing, Austin, is that I'm reminded of this with up-tempo offense. You got to make that first down. They did that in the first quarter, and they dominated. I mean, they were in complete control. They get to that
you start
second
playing behind
quarter.
the sticks, it's
They get in the second quarter, into the first quarter, heading into the second quarter. They don't make first down on back-to-back series, and it's all out of kilter there. So the whole key to that thing is you got to make that first down to get things going, and we'll see how much this Tennessee team grows.
I mean,
week 1 to week 2.
I get the angst from the fans. They've had 4 years of bad quarterback play, and tonight it was like locking in, not getting the ball out of your hands. It was
Same
like
issues.
It was like deja vu. Now, again, how much of that was on him? Part of it, and how much of that was on receivers not being able to get open, or running wrong routes, or whatever.
Not being
Probably,
healthy.
probably part of it too. So, like, again, I get the angst. The problem is, like, they're not changing quarterbacks, at least not right now. And so, I mean, Joe Milton will be the guy going into next week, and, Tennessee fans just better hope that, the old, you get better, the most improvements made going from game 1 to game 2. Yeah. They better hope that holds true.
Again, the thing about tonight, there's no reason to change a quarterback. You weren't losing the game. You clearly think he has the most upside. Joe does. Sure. And that's the guy that you think you got to let him play through it. Now, you get in that game next week, when you're in a tight ball game and maybe you're struggling there, that's a whole different conversation, because it's a whole different level of competition that you're playing against. They weren't going to lose tonight. And as long as he's not throwing pick sixes they're not going to lose the game. Let him play through. So there was never a thought. And there shouldn't have been a thought about making a quarterback change in the middle of the game. You got to let him play through it. The question is, how much does he learn from this week to improve himself from week 1 to week 2? I know he said he felt like he played good or played well after the game. I think the grade, and I think the film study of that, he's probably going to see he missed a lot of things that he probably didn't know or doesn't realize that he missed it at the time he's meeting with the media after the game. We got tons of coverage up on the site. We'll have tons of stuff coming up the next few days to get more on this game, and then start thinking about Pittsburgh and moving forward. Josh Heupel will meet the media on Monday. We got some new stuff coming out Monday afternoon, some new content coming that way as well. Plenty of things, plenty of discussion going on at the General's quarters. That will continue. That's going to do it for this Thursday night, Friday morning mini podcast as Tennessee beats Bowling Green by a score of 38-6. For Eric Kane, Ben McKee, and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Friday, everybody.